So you must have heard that. That means that these lectures are going to be recorded. I post them later in the day. And then on Canvas, you can go back and listen to it all over again. When you type in good morning in the chat, there's a record in the recording of you having been in class. And so that's our role. So when you come in to class every morning, just say good morning. You might not be a good morning kind of greeter person. That's okay. This is going to get you used to it because you start working in a hospital. Guess what? Everybody like to be greeted. Everybody like to be good morning, you know, by the nursing staff, patients, doctors, lab techs, everybody. So kind of get used to it if you're not that kind of a person. All right, so you see me, you see my background, very anatomical. You can figure out a background for yourself. It's a lot of fun. You go onto your Zoom profile thing, pick out a photograph, upload it, and then you have in the background. So this way we don't see your children, your cat, the mayhem going on behind you, wherever you may be. That's okay. Same with me. I just have like kitchen paneling behind me. That's all I have. So I put up this. As long as it's not obscene, something with an anatomical theme to it would be nice. A picture of a skull, your favorite bone, muscles, something to do with anatomy. That would be great. All right, I welcome everyone that's joining. So far, we've got 85 participants. That's excellent. Everyone's here for the first day. Now, you are all able to get into Canvas, I'm presuming, because you are all here, correct? Yes, just nod, yes. Or you can go like this. That means yes, yes. That means yes, yes. So that's how the deaf say yes, yes, that's okay. It's also how my cat said, give me something to eat. All right. So you're all into Canvas and you're all able to click on the Zoom. Excellent. So that address is going to be there reliably for you. Now, I think the second week or so of our lectures, if I look at my calendar, I wasn't able for some reason to schedule a Zoom meeting, and I've tried and tried, but there will be lecture. And I might end up having to send that particular address out for you so that you can have that in your email. So I'll be mass emailing you out. Now, here what I have, I don't know if you can see that really well because of the glare. Let me see. On my camera, I don't see it. It's like it blends into the background. Can you see that? Can you see it now?
Yeah.
It's on orange paper. All right, that is the download of the calendar for this course. Very important document for you to have. And I've got, you know, September, August, September, October, November, December, all of the months for this semester. On the calendar are all of the exam dates. This is very important. Lecture quizzes, lab quizzes are all indicated on the calendar. Lecture content, what we'll be lecturing about on the calendar. Holidays, yay, are on the calendar. This is a document that you need to look at every day to keep current. And for those of you that have never Zoomed or did any sort of distance education like this before, this will help keep you on track. Those of you that have had online courses already would know the value of something like this to keep up with your studies so that you don't feel lost. Because I mean, even now on the first day, a lot of you are sitting there like, oh, you know, this just, I'm lost already. That's okay. We're all going to bring everybody on track with the calendar. So make sure you go on to Canvas. In Canvas, in the information part of the modules, it's a calendar. Open it, print it out, live with it. Also in Canvas, there's an electronic calendar that shows you all the dates, and it even has little windows so that when you click on the windows on the Canvas calendar, it opens up and it gives you a lot more information about what's going on that day. Exams, content, everything. So start looking at that. Look for the calendar in Canvas, okay? Make sure you can access that. There's a lot of things to look at in Canvas. I've got, let's see, I've got lectures posted. I have diagrams for the lab. There are the outlines. Now let's see here. I'm going to do a little screen share with you. All right. So right now we should all be looking and you should see like my Canvas shells for the class. Y'all guys see that? Y'all see this? The little animated skeletons. Y'all see that? Yes, yes, you see that? All right. Click on your Canvas. These are all mine because I'm in charge of like all these courses. So, and if we look, as soon as it opens, it'll have district, recent announcements, resources, instructor resources, course information. Keep scrolling down. Oh, course syllabus, course calendar. And we go to the modules. You click on module 1. And right at the top, you should see Bio 239 lecture outlines for this semester. And then we also have lab outlines. We scroll further down to the lab section, lab outlines. When you click on that, it should open up automatically. There we go. And so you see all this material as you scroll through. This is the content you will be responsible for learning. When I lecture, every lecture, I will have a copy of this in front of me. You should have the same. And I go through each topic and I expect you to take notes and be able to study and understand. This is what you need to learn. This is your contract for the material that you need to learn. There's also one for the lab that you need to learn that content as well. I advise that you print it out. Don't just like, oh, I'm going to electronically access it, because sometimes you can't always reliably get online for whatever reason. And then you're stuck because it's like, well, how am I supposed to study? 2, you download this, you're able to physically make notes. And that's going to help you. Just the fact that you're writing notes. Now you might say to yourself, well, I'm not a note taker. I've never been a good note taker. Nobody is when they first start. But I encourage you to start and to keep it up. You will get better. And by the very act of writing out notes, it makes your brain think in a more ordered fashion, because now you're having to categorize, you're having to document, and you're having to express and think. Words are power. You'll be able to write them, then you're able to think in them. And when it comes time for the testing, You'll be able to test well. You will test better by this very exercise. A lot of you might not take tests too good, for anatomy. And you know what? I understand. When I took anatomy, I was a horrible test taker, really. So I write my tests very straightforward, very clear, testing on the content. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm much better in the lab with the content. Some of you might be really great test takers, but terrible in the lab. Like you have trouble memorizing models and body parts and stuff. You're going to work on that. So everyone's going to work on their weakness and bring themselves up in these next 16 weeks. You're
So,
going to do it.
question.
Hold on, no questions yet.
Okay.
And if you can turn off your microphone too, please. Thank you very much. Everybody have your mic on mute because I'm hearing some background noises. I will open up for questions in a bit. All right, I'm on a roll here. Don't let me forget what I'm doing. Okay. Oh, let's see, where was I? Talking about lecture content. On the outline, on the calendar, if you have the calendar, or if you pulled it up and you can reference it, let's have a look at that. So we've seen, okay, so we've seen here the quizzes. Let me see something else here. All right, so I'm gonna go through. All right, calendar. All right, so I'm gonna click on my calendar, boom, click on my calendar. All right, my calendar come up and here it is. So everybody see the calendar. This is what I've been waving around here. So what I'm waving around here, it's the document that you see here on the screen. This tells us what's going on. And I make this announcement. The schedule is not written in stone. It is subject to adjustment. So make sure to attend lecture and lab for updates. I do try to keep you updated through email. Make sure your email is current with us. Don't send me individual email. You got to go through the registrar. I don't take individual email requests to send it. It's got to be through the registrar. All right, so today's lecture, you note it says here on the screen, Intro to Basic Anatomical Terms. It's where my little arrow is dancing around here. Wednesday's lecture will be cell organelles and mitosis, and there's going to be a practice quiz released, if not already online, so that you can practice. You can get a little heads up about how my quiz style is, kind of what the content, how it would be presented to you. It's not worth anything. There's no extra credit, not worth any point. It's a practice quiz in preparation for the quizzes that are going to begin in September. Your first lecture quiz is on September 1st. Note on the calendar. And so all the lecture quizzes, lecture quiz 2, lecture quiz 3, are noted on Wednesday. Wednesday is quiz day. Wednesday toward the end of the lecture time is quiz day. Wednesday at 9:45, most every Wednesday in this course, there will be a lecture online. So I will lecture on Wednesday up until about 9:40 and then say, okay, everybody go take quiz. And then you're gonna click on your Canvas link, take your quiz, it'll close at 10, it gets graded, and then there's your score. The key or the answers will be made available the Sunday after. And I do this because I teach a class also, the same class on Saturday. And because I use some of the quiz, not all of it, for the Saturday, I don't like to give out the key beforehand. And so that's why I make you wait all week until Sunday to see the correct answers. All right. Lab quizzes are noted on Sunday. We're not meeting on Sunday. I only put it on Sunday on this calendar because that's all I had room for. So the lab quizzes, like here, lab quiz 2 will be on the axial skeleton, 15 questions, 15 points. Lab quizzes are going to be written by your lab instructor. Now, I'm a lab instructor for a few of the labs, but not all of them. So ask your lab instructor what the format for their quizzes will be. Are they going to do an online? Are they going to do it the old-fashioned way, requiring a Scantron? A Scantron is a test form. It is a test form that you can purchase in either the machines on campus, they have machines that sell them, or you can go to the bookstore and buy them. So make sure to ask your lab instructor. Now for me, all the lecture online. There's no Scantron for the lecture. For my lab, online. But the lab instructor for you might choose to do the old-fashioned Scantron method, and that's up to them. And make sure you ask them, and then ask them what Scantron do you need. They might ask you, to bring in a 15 AS or 100 AS. That designation numerically means it's got 1 through 15 spots to answer 15 questions for the 15 AS. On the 100 AS, there's 100 questions to answer. So we can ask you up to 100 questions using that form. That's the difference between the 15 AS and the 100 AS. All right. So again, all the content, everything is noted. As we go through the months, here we get to October. I'm sorry about this big blotch. I guess I scanned it on a machine that was a little dirty on this here. And so your printer, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm sorry, but I had to slap this up. All right, midterm will be in the 8th week, and the midterm will cover everything. Everything will be covered on the midterm from the first week. So from today's content all the way through, okay? Then we move on and we see continuing lab quizzes. Lecture quiz 6 will be on blood and immune system. Down here, these little flagged boxes, these banners are telling you what we're doing in lab. So if I go back up here to August, we're doing microscopy and metrics this first week. In lab, we'll be talking about it, use of the microscope, use of the metric system, getting used to lab nomenclature, etc. So I expect to see you all in lab. Next week, we begin, already, the axial skeleton and vertebra. Oh, my favorite. So we already jump right into the bones, and we use both real and mostly plastic. So there's mostly plastic models of bones, but we do have some real ones to look at. Very interesting. We move on then into the appendicular skeleton, and then the cell anatomy with all of the organelles, etc. And again, if we look here, let me just click on for you. I'm getting out of the calendar. All right, so I've just clicked out of the calendar. All right, and I'm going to open up the lab outlines. So these are the outlines for lab. Organelles. We begin to learn about mitotic phases, some concepts of microscopy. And again, all of this is in the lab outline. So you need to learn all this content. So you're always going to have this available to you. I may add a few items to it, but for the most part, 95% of all testing content is coming from these outlines, with just maybe 5% added throughout the semester to bring us current with science, to bring us current with local events, etc. So when you start learning, don't look at the lab manual and think, oh my God, I won't live long enough to learn everything in this lab manual. Oh my God, the book is so thick. There's so much in there. I'm not going to live long enough to study all that. No, you won't. That's why I make the outline. Outline tell you what you need to know for the study. If you don't have this outline with you, you're at a disadvantage already, because of course you're going to be confused. Of course you're going to throw your hands up and be like, wah, I don't know what I'm doing. The outline is going to help you. So I'm going to keep asking and telling you, because there's always going to be some poor soul that doesn't download it for the first 6 weeks. Don't be that soul. Do that, do that by Wednesday, please. You know, and if you can't do it all at once, you know, at the computer center on campus, you're able to go in, I think, download 10 pages. So you can go in there and download it a little bit at a time, you know, and then make it complete for yourself. So you can come on campus now. You are able to come into the computer center and access, I believe, that equipment, just like you're able to come on to lab. All right. So here was our lab outlines, all kind of bones, foramina, etc. All right. So let's see, what else do we have over here? All right. Now, I posted February's Zoom lecture intro terms. So you may have listened to this, probably not, because from what I understand, they didn't open up Canvas to you until today. So I will be posting the lecture from today, but if I don't cover everything, this lecture will help, you know, cover everything that's on the outlines. Same with this organelle. So I will be posting lectures from February, from March, into your current Zoom along with the current lecture. This way you can see, is there a difference? No, there's no difference. But if I get cut short or something happens, you have full content access. You're able to listen. Now, the basis of this whole semester is I lecture you live. We have synchronous meeting here, just like we're doing now. Sometimes I can't make it, or maybe you can't make it. You'll listen to the recorded lectures. So you're never out of pocket. Don't use that excuse. Well, I didn't know, I didn't go to lecture, I didn't listen. If you don't listen, that's up to you. So everybody needs to stay current. Don't let it slide past you. Don't wait until the weekend thinking, okay, well, I've got a lot of things to do this week. I'm not going to go to lecture. I might blow into lab for an hour and then leave early. Don't try to catch up, because if you miss like a week, that's a lot of catch-up time that you have to do somewhere. Keep up with this current every time we lecture. Make notes, go over your notes, listening to this again. It will help you review. Everybody's learning style is different. Some of you are listeners, some of you are readers. Some of you don't know because you haven't done enough of it. You're going to have to find your way. Note cards, taking notes, listening, reading, looking at pictures. And thank goodness anatomy is just about all pictures. That's how you learn. And then using your memory. Now, some of you might say, well, I don't have such a good memory. It will improve. It's going to have to improve, because that's all this course is about, is learning by memory, being able to be tested and bring up information. Now, I'm not dumb. A lot of cheating goes on. A lot of people go online when they take my exams and stuff like that. But that's why I don't give a lot of time on the exams, because I expect you to have learned it. So I don't give hours for a 15-minute exam. You get 15 minutes, 15 questions. I try to give you a minute per question. On the big exams, you get a little less because a lot of the questions, frankly, are really easy, very straightforward if you've done any studying at all. For instance, here's the first factoid y'all need to learn, and that is my favorite tissue. What is my favorite tissue in the whole wide world? It is pseudo stratified, ciliated, columnar, epithelium. Pseudostratified, ciliated, columnar epithelium, my very favorite tissue in the whole wide world. Why? Learning it, just being able to say it and spell it out confers a degree of sophistication of anatomical knowledge upon your person, upon your brain. I will ask you this between now throughout the end of the semester. It will pop up, and that's a free point. Any exam, any quiz. So if you don't learn it now, you're just going to be a victim. So don't be victimized. Learn it now. Also, my favorite enzyme. What is my favorite enzyme? Alcohol dehydrogenase. My most favorite enzyme in the whole human body. Maybe you can guess why. It helps us if you drink alcohol. And we'll talk about alcohol metabolism when we get into the liver a little more. Now, most of this course is about anatomy, but I do lard it. I do include some physiology. That means some function to make it interesting. So from time to time, you will be given these facts and you must learn them. All right. Now, I'm scrolling through the comments. Someone's like, I can't hear anything. Well, I hope you fixed the microphone, hon. Everyone else is saying, yeah, I can hear it fine. Your background is covering it. If you can't hear, it's being recorded. Someone say, okay. I'm having trouble with my Wi-Fi to connect quickly. Okay, that's okay. First problems, first day. Yes, you have lab today. Someone asked a question. Now is the time to ask questions. Type your question in because I want people to be able to read your question. And so then I can address this question as I scroll through. So if you have a question, type it into the chat at this time right now. I see a lot of good mornings, a lot of cheery little faces. Excellent. Again, if you just joined us late, please just type in good morning. It's how I take roll. Because these lectures are recorded, it's a record of your attendance. So we have it. So if any question come up about you ever like not attending, here it is. Say, Professor Have-it, I was there. I good morninged him every lecture. All right, so let's have a look. So now I'm going to read questions and we'll get to some questions here. All right. Let's see. Will lab be on campus? Yes, all labs are on campus. You meet in R201 or R202. It depends. Check your schedule. My labs all meet in R201. This is in Russell Hall for the designated times. You only have to come to lab once a week at the designated time according to your schedule. Check your schedule through your registrar. Go into WebAdvisor and check to see what time. You just can't show up any old time. You can't just show up any old day. Okay? So lab is on campus starting today, this week. So next question, is your lab? So is lab every Monday and Wednesday? No, it's only once a week and it depends. We run lab Monday through Saturday. You have signed up to be in lab on either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, or Saturday. Now, Friday and Saturday labs are generally reserved for the Saturday lecture. The other ones are the rest of the week. Again, check WebAdvisor. It should be on your schedule, telling you what your day is. Okay? Try not to be late. All right, continuing. Lab on campus. How do we find out a lab instructor and times? Again, WebAdvisor. Let me type that in. Maybe you guys, the WebAdvisor is where you went in to register. WebAdvisor. So check in WebAdvisor. All right, let's see. Direct message. I direct messaged one person. Okay, I got to type this again. WebAdvisor. There. So go into WebAdvisor. Let's see. Someone asked, I have the 10th edition of the book, but is the global edition, is that fine? As long as you have the Merriam textbook, 10th edition, 11th edition, that's fine. A little older edition, that's fine too. The college likes us to have you buy the latest, newest, brightest edition. But here's a fact. Human anatomy hasn't changed in like 40,000 years, 50,000 years. We have not added any new bones. We have not added a third eye. We have not added an extra ear or an extra finger or toes in the general human model for 40,000 years. And yet they want us to change our book every 2 or 3 years. I don't understand. It makes about as much sense as changing geology books every 2 or 3 years. I mean, the rocks haven't changed type of thing. So, but you do need a book. Now, a lab manual, you also need to keep up with your studies. A lab manual, we can lend you just for the lab period, but I have to have them back. You can't take them home. So if I loan you a lab manual in the lab, it's got to be returned at the end of each lab. But that's not really going to do you much good because you have to leave it. So it's best to have one. Now, I prefer that you buy the one by Merriam that's current, but if you can't get a current one, you can get an older one. You don't have to buy one that has a cat dissection. There will be no cat dissection this semester. No cat dissection. You've heard me right. No cat dissection. So, but a lab manual, a textbook, and the lab atlas. Now, we do have lab atlases for sale in the bookstore as all these other books. They haven't run out. A lab atlas is vital to help you learn different parts. You got to have an atlas. An atlas is a book of pictures. And this is going to help you learn as you go through all of these things. So you can't come without one, especially when we do bones and organs and we're doing histology. Oh my gosh. Now your textbook, a good textbook, will have all these pictures and atlases in them too. So if you have a really good textbook, you might be able to skate away without the lab manual. But again, when we start the dissections, the lab manual is going to be very helpful. These are all tools, mind you. I don't make a penny off of them. I don't get any royalty because I didn't write any of them. I've given you my outlines for free. Some professors print out that outline and they charge you a royalty getting it through the bookstore. I don't do that. There it is for you online for free. I'm not trying to make any money off of nobody. But I do want you to have the proper tools to learn, to study, to have access to. Now, if you want to go and find an e-version, go right ahead. But I don't have a contract with the publisher for e-materials. So I don't know how you would access that. If you could find an e-book somewhere with Marieb. You might find it with another author, but not with Marieb. Okay, someone says you have to bring an apron to lab. You don't need aprons or dissection tools until about the 6th week. So don't worry about that. You do need to wear shoes. No open-toed shoes though, get into the habit of this. And dress appropriately coming to lab, preferably wearing long-sleeved garments to help protect your arms because you'll want to rest them on lab tables. We will be cleaning lab tables every week, but you still want to kind of protect yourself. If you have a lab coat and you want to bring it in, start wearing it, go right ahead. You're going to need one anyway. All right, let's see. Also, what do we need to buy from the bookstore for lab? That's in the syllabus. You will need to buy an apron and a dissection kit, a couple of other things to check your syllabus. What time is it? You got to check your section in WebAdvisor. Do we have a lab every other week? No, not like the previous semester at all. Good question. Every week. Last semester, it was every other week because of COVID's rampantness. Now they've opened it up and we're doing lab every week. There are no longer group 1 and 2, especially if you're repeating this course. You have to come in every week now. All right, WebAdvisor said lab for this course is 10:20 to 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday. That's correct. That's where you're signed in. No, lab's not broken up into 2 groups anymore. What do we need to bring for the first day labs? Bring a device if you haven't printed out your lab outline. Bring a textbook. I want to see everybody bringing their textbook in. Lab atlas, bring in all your materials so we can see what you have. Set you up. That's what you need to bring. I want to see that you've got your books, and that you have access to something. What lab should we find the schedule for the labs on WebAdvisor? What tab? I don't know. Look under enrollment, my schedule, I guess. I don't know. I don't have access to the WebAdvisor. I figured you would know. This call is over at 10 a.m. If I have labs on Wednesday from 11 to 3, does that mean you are my instructor? On Wednesday I don't know. I have to check my own schedule. Let me see. I'm looking. I'm in that lab, let's see, from 10:20 to 1:30 on Wednesday. No, the Wednesday from 3:20 to 6:30 is Caldani. 11 to 3 on Wednesday. I don't even have a lab from 11 to 3 on Wednesday here. So I don't know what you're asking me with that one. All right. Let's see. There's a lab today from 11:55 to 3:05. Yes, everyone's lab will vary according to how you set up your schedule. That's right. Thank you very much. Your lab varies depending on you. Where do you find it in WebAdvisor? You're going to have to get in there and look for your schedule. So there is lab today. So check and see. Don't sit there and be like, well, I didn't know I had lab today. Check. You guys have access. Check. If you're here and dialed into this call, you have access, so you can check. All right. All right, let's see. I'm still scrolling through the questions. Yes, it's fine if you just bring what you have. Smart. as your book. All right. Now, someone says the Hamptons Lecture and Lab section is maybe sold out at the bookstore. That don't matter. It's available here in Canvas for you. So if you bought it at the bookstore, I mean, you could buy it. The lab and lecture outline are for sale in case you don't have a printer, you don't want to be bothered printing it out. And it's cheap. Again, I don't get a penny. I don't get any royalty off of it. The same content is available in everybody's Canvas. So laptop, okay? Yes, laptop is fine if you purchase the virtual book. All right. Can we use an ebook from online? Yes, you may. Is it all right to have our textbook online? Oh, yes, it is. What if your book won't come in time for lab? Well, then we'll have to be patient and wait for it to come in, but that's okay. There's no homework assignments. So there's nothing that you'll have to turn in. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking, that's the second one, the professor, the bookstore, standalone. Okay, so one professor, lecture lab. Okay, there are more than other instructors for this course. So while I'm the lecturer and I teach a lab or two here and there, I do have Dr. DiBernardo, Dr. Nair, and there's Dr. Caldani too. Also, she teaches on Wednesday from 3:20 to 6:30 for these Monday, Wednesday labs. Again, you only have to come to lab once. Check your web advisor. Make sure you know where you're coming to. If we're not direct dissecting any cats, I'm not sure if we need a dissection kit. Yeah, you do. Because while we're not doing cats, we're doing a heart. We're doing an eye. We're doing a brain. What else are we doing? Heart, brain, eye. There's something else because there's 4. I'm trying to remember. Oh, well, it'll come to me. All right. Can't we just follow the modules outlines in Canvas instead of a textbook? You can try, you can try just using the PowerPoint. And let me show you the PowerPoint now, because here's someone that's like, well, I don't want to buy a book. The book's really expensive and I don't need a book. A book is a tool. And if you don't avail yourself of the proper tools, you're not giving yourself the best advantage for the course. I know a book is a big expense, but education costs, and everybody has to pay something somewhere. You can't expect to get everything for free. That's just not how life is. I don't know. Maybe you've never heard that. This life is not free. You got to pay for things. I had to pay for things. I grew up here in Santa Ana. I still live in Santa Ana. I know what it's like not to have $2 bills to rub together. But you had to make it work somehow. You're going to have to do that. Get a book. It's going to help you. You don't get a book, you're at a disadvantage. So let me see here. Where is that sharing? Get rid of that. All right, so new share. All right, so I'm going to start lecture, the actual lecture now. Save your questions. And I will look at them again in a bit. All right, so up on your screen, you should see human anatomy and physiology. This is a picture of the book cover that you saw here. All right. And so, all right, let me see. You. Home. So, chapter 1, the human body and orientation. We begin by looking at the outline. And on my outline, I've got introduction to human anatomy at the top, differences between human science fields. So I've got anatomy, physiology, histology, cytology, and pathology and developmental biology. All of these are different disciplines in the life sciences. Anatomy is parts and identifying structure. Physiology is function. How do these parts work? How do some of them, do what they do? Histology is a study of tissues, all of the different tissues of the body. Epithelial tissue, connective tissue, neurons, muscles. Cytology is a study of individual cells. Clinically, cytology is a science that is used to screen for things like cancer from different fluids of the body, etc. Pathology is a study of disease. A pathologist is the kind of doctor that does the autopsies. To become a coroner, a fully fledged coroner, you need to have an MD and in pathology so that you can do forensic autopsies. Part of my background, I worked in pathology for 4 years. So I'm all about diseases and things like that. And I'll tell you more about my background. So suffice to say, what I'm teaching you is all clinically relevant. I'm not just teaching you content from a book because I just happen to read it or because I just happen to have a class in anatomy at some time. I actually had part of my career using anatomy as a pathologist in pathology. Now, anatomical terms we begin to learn. Oh, and developmental biology, that's embryology. That's the growth and development of a human during the gestation process. We'll cover that in our last month. Dynamics is studying anatomy. Well, we've got regional, surface, systemic, X-ray, and digital imaging. This just tells you all the different ways that we organize anatomical features and parts, and you're going to see right here. All right, levels of organization. We begin with atoms and molecules down to enzymes. And I'm looking to see here if I have that in here, because in this lecture, there's a lot of terms. All right, but the atoms and molecules like H2O, atoms like carbon, hydrogen, enzymes, well, I've introduced you to my favorite enzyme in the whole body, alcohol dehydrogenase. We'll talk more about it. Metabolic byproducts from water, proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. We're going to address those as far as the cell membrane. Organelles, those are the small organs that make up the insides of the cell with adaptive surface structures like cilia or flagella. Tissues with membranes, organs, and systems. All right, positions and locations, anatomical position, supine versus prone, meaning are you laying down or are you standing up with your palms facing out? Standard anatomical position, body erect, feet slightly apart, palms facing forward with thumbs pointing away from the body. Directional terms, we're going to get to that right now. Now, here in the PowerPoint, which is available again to you in your Canvas. So you can download this, not in color. I would download it in black and white, but this content is also available in the textbook and should be available in most any good anatomy book. All right, so you're going to have to start learning superior, inferior, anterior, posterior, median, sagittal, parasagittal, transverse or horizontal, frontal or coronal. These are all planes of section. Now, superior is like towards the head. Inferior is towards the tail. That's what caudal means. Anterior, the front. Posterior, think of your gluteus maximus. That's your posterior that you sit upon. But your back is a posterior surface. Your shoulder blades are a posterior surface. So begin thinking in these terms. Medial, a human is a bilateral animal. A human is a bilateral specimen. You cut a human in half into equal left and right portions. You should have the same distribution of organs, more or less, maybe a little more on one side, maybe a little less on one side or the other. Lateral is a side. Intermediate, that's more towards the center. Proximal, distal, these are used with the extremities, with the arms and the legs. Proximal is closer to the head, to the midline. Distal is furthest away. Tips of your fingers are the most distal part of the human body, always. I could ask you a true or false question. True or false? Distal fingers, distal toe, tips of the fingers, tips of the toes are always distal, always. Now, some of you might have been trained to say, oh, that's a false, because anytime you see always, it's a false. But in anatomy, there are certainty questions, and that's one of them. Unless you are a variant with your fingers or toes, they're always going to be distal on the tips, always. And so that goes for a lot of other things that can be said for anatomy. All right. Now, planes of section. All right, median, right to the middle of the body. We also call this sagittal. Sagittal. Parasagittal is a little to one side or the other. So an absolute sagittal section is equal left and right portions. Parasagittal, P-A-R-A, sagittal, means a little off center. A little off center. Frontal or coronal divides the body into anterior and posterior portions, always. Transverse divide the body into superior and inferior portions, always. Now, on these diagrams that are showing you these portions, we also see MRI imaging. And you'll notice that on some of these imaging, okay, so on the frontal or coronal plane, we can see a bilateral view of the lungs with a frontal plane. Can we see, do you think, a bilateral view of the lungs with a sagittal section? No. If I had a sagittal section going through me, we wouldn't see any lungs because it's offset on one side or the other of the plane. These are the kind of questions I will ask you on your very first exam that counts. You know, which plane of section will give us a bilateral view of the kidneys? Which plane of section will give us a bilateral view of the lungs or a view of the heart? Things like that. So you've got to learn the sections and you got to start thinking about all the parts on the inside. Now, we do this here. You're going to begin to learn regional terms of the body, axial, appendicular, and body regions. Look here. In your lab manuals, as you see up here on the screen, I'm going to kind of go between the two. We see a figure, a human figure, and on this human figure, we have terms. And these terms describe the different region. Let's look carefully here. Okay, we have frontal, orbital, nasal, buccal or cheek, oral, which is on the inside. Mental is the chin. So on an exam, I might ask you an analogy. Oh no, I'm not might. I will. I will ask you things like, frontal is to forehead, while blank is to chin. Frontal is to forehead, while blank is to chin. That's a question. And the question will ask you to choose, because it'll be multiple choice, what word describes chin? And what word describes chin? Mental here. I could ask you, all right, okay, abdominal is to stomach as what is the pollex? And what is the pollex? The thumb. If we look carefully here, look at the diagram, the pollex is the thumb. So you have got to begin learning these terms. By learning these terms now, it's going to help you learn nerves, arteries, and veins, because guess what? A lot of the vasculature and innervation is named after the very same region. For instance, femoral. The femoral is the thigh. We have a femoral artery, we have a femoral vein, and we also have running within the thigh a sciatic nerve. And this is going to give rise to femoral nerves. So by learning these parts now, it's going to help you later on in the course. How to learn? You can either draw the figure and then label it as part of a memory exercise. You can make notes, like note cards, like on one side, for instance. Okay, look, on one side, look, right, acromial. And then what part of the body is that? Why, that's the shoulder. So you put acromial on one side of the card, shoulder on the other. And then you use the note cards and marry the terms together by studying that way. That's very helpful for some people. You draw, you fill in. Some of you are artists. Some of you can draw really well. Well, if you could draw this and then label it, guess what? You've learned it. And you access it freely in your head. I don't have exams with open note or open book. I write my exams so that you access your open brain. Everything you've put in there, you're going to be able to access quickly and answer reliably. And all my exams are forced questions. You have to answer one question and move on and forward through the exam. There's no looking back. There's no reviewing. So you have to learn this content so that when you take the exam, You're able to answer it reliably. And that's part of this course too, is to teach you confidence. Nobody wants an unconfident nurse or doctor. We want confident people. Well, you begin learning at here. Okay, you might not be so very good right now. You will be better. By the end of the course, you stick it out and you study and you learn, you will be. You can do it. It can be done. All right. So sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane. We talked about deep versus superficial. All right. What does that mean? Deep versus superficial. All right. Well, our body, we have on the surface, and then we have on the inside. For instance, if you know how to feel for your radial pulse, that's the radial artery here in the, when they feel for it, arteries are always deep. And that's why you have to push in. If you're at the gym and you see people exercising and they do their aerobics, and then you see them standing there on the treadmill and they go like this. What are they feeling for? They're feeling for the carotid artery and checking their heart rate to see how they're doing with their aerobic conditioning. That's what they're doing. They're not palpating a jugular vein. They're palpating the carotid artery. Arteries are deep, veins are superficial. There's only one real superficial artery, and that would be the temporal artery. And you can see it on some people when they get mad. Like if they get really angry, you see a vessel sticking out on the side of their head, and you might even see a little bounding pulse with it. Then you're like, oh, gee, that person's upset. So there's a way to use some anatomy there. All right, so begin learning these planes. Now, human is hollow. We're not a solid chunk of meat. Humans are cavities. Dorsal body cavity, ventral body cavity. You got to begin learning what things are within our cavities. Okay, our cranial cavity's got the brain. Vertebral cavity, it got the spinal cord. Thoracic cavity, oh, contains the heart and the lungs. The thoracic cavity is divided up into mediastinum, pleural cavities, pericardial cavity. Separating the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity is a muscle called the diaphragm. That muscle here. That diaphragm is where your lungs sit upon. We have a pelvic cavity. There's no muscle that separates the abdominal cavity from the pelvic cavity. It's all kind of one. Pelvic cavity contains urinary bladder, reproductive organs, and the rectum. So you got to start learning. And the rest of these menus up on the PowerPoint show you and tell you what is what. All right. You can even get a model. They had these at Target. Everybody can go to Target, and I bought one. He's like a little anatomy man. I don't know if you can see him. He's transparent, kind of fun to have. I call him Mr. Squishy. So Mr. Squishy here, you can open him up and you've got a bunch of organs. You've got a brain, spinal cord, and he's fairly cheap. He's like, I think 25 bucks. But it's a nice anatomy because you also get a skeleton in this model, maybe to kind of help visualize articulations. You get muscles in the arm and the leg. That's going to help you. This is a cheap model. And again, like I said, they sold it at Target. They still might have it. So check it out and see. People like to know about models, or you can go online and look for them. All right, now, serosa membranes. Membranes are made out of epithelial tissue, and all organs are covered with membranes. We've got parietal and visceral. The visceral serosa covers internal organs. Parietal serosa lines internal body cavity walls and is external to the visceral. Between the parietal and visceral, you're going to get serous fluid. Serous fluid is lubricant. We're a wet being, juicy on the inside, not dry, but juicy. And it's this serous fluid that keeps us juicy, keeps us moisturized, keeps us lubricated so things can function. If you run out of lubricating fluid, you begin to seize up and there'll be problems. That's why it's important for humans to be well hydrated, drinking water every day, lots of it. All right, the different membranes, the pericardium, pleura, peritoneum, all here, heart, lungs, abdominal pelvic cavity. And this shows you pericardium, peritoneum, all right? This talks about what happens if these become infected. Pleurisy is infection of the pleura around the lungs. Peritonitis, that's an infection of the peritoneal membrane. Again, peritoneal membrane in the abdominal cavity. Pleura within the thoracic cavity. So you got to begin learning these things so that as I speak, you can visualize it. Quadrants and regions. The body is divided into these quadrants: right upper quadrant, right lower, left upper, left lower quadrant. Note, the appendix is in our right lower quadrant here. Our gallbladder is in our right upper quadrant. Stomach is mostly in our left upper. And then we have these regions, 9 of them, and we have the distribution of the organs within these regions. So for exam purposes, you will be asked to match, where do we find most of the liver, let's say. Okay, and here's a picture of our liver. Now, our liver is mostly in our right hypochondriac region and epigastric, but not in the left hypochondriac region. So on an exam, you might be asked to match the region with the location of an organ so that you can begin learning placement here. If I said, as a true or false statement, the appendix is located in the left hypochondriac region. Well, here's our left hypochondriac region here. Where's our appendix? Is it up here? No. Appendix on the right side, and it is located in the right inguinal region here. Now, some books will say it's located in the pubic region just below the navel. That depends on the person. Most humans, it's in the right inguinal region. It's only going to be in this pubic umbilical region just below the navel. If you are a slender person, if you're like me and you're the fat sheep of your family, that's what I tell people. I am not the black sheep of my family. I am the fat sheep because everybody else is skinny. I'm the fat one. Your appendix is going to be over here on the right side, not squished up towards the midline. Now, if you're a very narrow person, yes, then your appendix will be closer to the midline. And so if you have an appendectomy, that's where the scar would be left closer to the midline. But for most people, it's further off to the right. So you've got to begin learning these regions and structures and organs all within there. All right, let me check the chat box real quick. Let's see. Looks like everybody's sharing their email, which is kind of nice. Let's see, what else? I'm scrolling. There may be lectures from February or March for us to look at when you don't get to cover everything. Will you be letting us know when you didn't get to cover your lecture? Yes, I'll be letting you know. And you'll know if I cancel lecture too. If I say, oh, there's no lecture because of this or that. I'm trying to meet with you synchronously, but if I send out an email saying, oh, I can't make it tomorrow, boom, then you know you've got to look at the lecture online. A lot of this studying is predicated on you. You're going to have to keep up. This isn't, if you're coming from high school and taking this class and you're used to teacher calling you, pushing you along, I don't do that. You have to study. You have to take it upon yourself to learn the content. I do make it available and I make myself available to answer your questions, but it's self-motivated and driven now. All right. Make sure a PDF, you message. There's a lot of email. You guys are giving up your email. Okay. But you know what? You have the lecture outlines and the lab outlines already in your Canvas. So you guys have access to that. So I don't know what you're sending your emails about. And I'm scrolling through here, all this email. A lot of email. Wow. How long does it take you for you to upload your lecture recordings? It depends on Zoom. It depends. And it depends on what I have going that day. Later on Wednesday than on Monday. Usually by Monday, let's say they'll all be uploaded by 1 o'clock. Pretty much by 1 o'clock. All right. Where can you find this PowerPoint? This PowerPoint is located in Canvas module under module 1. All right. Will the outlines be our study guides for our exams? Yes, they will. Will I give a specific one, meaning am I going to give you a different one? No. For the midterm and the final, I do have lists of questions, which I kind of use as a study guide, like you got to cover this content. Here's some examples of some questions. So yes, I do release those, but I don't release those until a week or two. I'm trusting on you to study, but you will be given a bit more direction to narrow and focus your studies when you get closer to it. But for the lecture quizzes, study the content as it is per on the outline. And again, on the calendar, I have listed what will be the content. So don't email me looking for direction that way. Well, what's going to be on the quiz? I'll just say, look at your calendar. And don't email me back saying, well, I don't have one. I didn't look at it. Well, you better look at it. All right. So everything that you need to know is on that calendar to help you organize yourself. Use it. Make use of it. Okay, print it out. Is it one module a week? Pretty much it is one module a week, but I have them all open. All the modules are open. So if you've already gone through Canvas, you see that a lot of the modules are open and you see the PowerPoint, and in some of them you do see the lectures that are posted and you see lab outlines, etc. So there's a lot there. I've never been to the campus before, and is the classroom located near the front or the back of the campus? That's, is it located at the front? Okay, the front of the campus is on 17th Street. So I guess you could say your lab is towards the front of the building of Russell Hall. If you've never been on campus before, guess what? You're gonna have to make a field trip. And you're gonna have to make a field trip to find your classrooms before You're supposed to be in class, hopefully. Come to class early. We're still in a hybrid mode for teaching, so parking should not be an issue. But don't come late. Don't come arriving just on time, especially the first couple of weeks, especially if you've never been here. Come, explore a little bit. Check it out. Go to the bookstore, get a little snack. Check out where all the stations are for buying Scantrons, etc. You'll be glad you did. Yes, and there is a campus map, but maps don't tell you everything. Map don't tell you about the pretty little plants. Map don't tell you about, oh, the soda machine or the snack machine that's right outside the, down the hall or downstairs. So, all right. Let's see. Someone's posted the human anatomy model on Amazon. Oh, how kind of you. That's nice. Let me click on that. Let me just check that out. Ooh. Yeah, see, look, Mr. Squishy. So if you can see my screen, then you can see the Mr. Squishy. I'll have to bookmark that. That's kind of cool. Very good. How much are they selling him for? Oh, he's cheaper, way cheaper. Oh my God, yeah, get him on Amazon. 17 bucks. I paid 25 from mine. Didn't know. Okay. But yeah, it's a really pretty useful. So he'll encourage you. All right. What other questions have I got? Let me see. Someone goes, I bought it. Okay, very good for you, Nicole, for the squishy. All right. Now, let me see here. That's not what I wanted. If I go back here. All right. New share. All right, can everybody see my screen with the anatomy outline? Y'all see that? Do this if you can see it. Can you see it? Thank you. All right. I'm moving down. We're almost done. It's 9:55. I began promptly and I end promptly because that's the rental time for Zoom that I have these and they record for. Now, next lab, the generalized animal cell. All right. Begin in your textbook on the generalized animal cell as well as the directional terms in your studies. Begin with the definition of prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are bacterial cells. Eukaryotes are true cells. What's the difference? A true cell, like a eukaryote, carries its DNA in a nucleus. A prokaryote has no nucleus, and the genetic material is in a structure called a plasmid. It's in a structure called a plasmid, which is an open ring of genetic material, free floating. There's no organelle that organizes it this way. Environment of the cells is liquid. As I told you, we're all hydrated on the inside. We have an extracellular fluid, interstitial fluid, intracellular fluid. So start reading this chapter to familiarize yourselves with fluid placement. And then before the next lecture, say again and start reviewing the organelles. Read about them. Read them with regard to the features I have listed here in the outline. That's the content you need to know. So when I go through this in lecture, I can go through it. And since you've already read about it and kind of familiarized yourself with it to begin with, it'll help you in the lecture. Because as I articulate, and go through it in lecture, you'll be like, oh, gee, I remember that word now. Oh, I didn't understand that. Okay, that makes a little more sense. It's going to help you. And this is how you should study. I'm trying to tell you here, this is how you should be studying throughout the semester. Do a little review before lecture at the content that we're going to do. Look in the book. It's okay if you don't understand it. I don't expect you to, but at least familiarize yourself with it so that it's not totally brand new during the lecture. This will help you to retain the material better. Your efforts will yield great rewards for you. All right, so that's what you're going to do for Wednesday. Let me see. Someone is like, parking passes. Yes, you can buy parking passes. You park in the lots. Yeah. On campus, there is open Wi-Fi, so it's free for everybody. You just have to sign in with your student ID number. Now, I can understand poor internet. My internet crashed this morning. That's why I was like opening up this late, and I was like having difficulty. I don't know why with the modem and the router, but I got it up and running. And I thought, oh my God, if I can't get this going, I'm going to have to drive to the campus and sit in my truck with my phone. And I've done this before in my backyard and gone online when I've had internet issues and used my phone to lecture. So hopefully it won't happen and I'll be able to link up and everything, but sometimes I might just be on my phone lecturing and I won't have access to a PowerPoint or anything. So you're going to have to follow along very carefully. That's very rare. That only happened once last semester. That was it. So you guys have been really good. Thank you very much. Let's see, I'm just looking, is there parking place out the back? There's parking all over the campus. You can buy a parking pass. Yes, you can. There is a parking fee. They make me buy one. All right. On WebAdvisor, I think there's a link in WebAdvisor for you to go in and buy your parking pass. So check that out if you haven't bought one yet. Okay. Let's see. Again, someone says, have we taken roll yet? You take roll by saying good morning. So that's how I take roll. Every time you sign in to lecture here, you type in good morning. That way it's recorded because all my lectures are recorded and then I have a record of your attendance. Okay. All right. It's 10 o'clock. We are done with our time. That's all there is. There is no more. So see you in lab. Those of you that have a Monday lab. See you tomorrow in lab if you have lab tomorrow or Wednesday or Friday. But we'll definitely be back here on Wednesday. Okay? All right. Goodbye. Let me see. How do I get out of here?